So we are actually in our dough segment because I'm trying to purge the house of leavening. Passover is coming and I still have tons of yeast and baking soda and leavening agents in the house. So we will be doing a few recipes to get rid of those things. I advise you check out my previous videos for the homemade pancake recipe as well as my homemade cinnamon roll. They will show you ways to help get rid of that yeast as well. Now today we'll do pizza dough. Now I've already added to my mixing bowl 4 tablespoons of olive oil. I added 2 cups of warm water, just regular old warm tap. And you do not want it to be hot, you only want it to be warm because we want to wake up the yeast. Now if the water was hot, it would actually kill the yeast. We don't want to do that. I used 2 packets of these guys here, and I added 2 tablespoons of raw sugar. Now you could definitely add honey as opposed to the raw sugar if you prefer, but it needs some sort of sweetener to feed the yeast, and that's going to help it grow. All right, for my liquid I added a total of 2 2/3 cups. So 2 of those cups were warm water, 1/3 of it was warm water, and the other 1/3 of it was milk. Okay, so that's what we've done so far. Give this a swirl around. It was already showing me signs that it's awake because it was foamy, so you definitely want to wait for that process before you begin. Now that that's all incorporated, we're actually going to add in about 1/3 cup of dry milk. Flour is a dry ingredient, so you're going to want to use a dry measuring cup. Also, I've preheated my oven and then I turned it off because I'm going to use the oven like a warmer to help speed up the proofing process. So when we do put the dough in there, the oven is not going to be on. I preheated it and then I turned it off. It will be nice and warm inside, but not so hot that it kills the yeast. You can overproof or kill it. So we're just going to tap and scrape to make level spoons. And I've actually doubled this recipe, but if you have a small family, you can half it or just make a normal batch. So for my doubled recipe, I'm going to start with 6 cups of flour and reserve about 1/2 cup for kneading into the dough if I need to use it. And 6. And we'll have a little bit on standby in the event we need it. The pizza dough is just that simple. So we have all of our ingredients. We've added the yeast, it's foaming. So I'm going to put a barrier between the yeast and the salt. That's why I added the dried milk, and that's why I added the flour first. Now that I know my yeast is awake, I'm going to add in the salt. And then we'll start to knead it together. And we're going to let the mixer do all the work. I'm going to add on my dough attachment here. This is a dough hook, and it will do the work and knead the dough for us. And then when we're ready to handle it, we won't really have to do much kneading. My last ingredient to add to our dough is the salt. All baked goods surprisingly need salt. It will taste very bland if you didn't have it. The recipe calls for 2 teaspoons of fine salt. I have pink salt, so I'm not going to go as heavy. I'm going to use 1.5. Now, you could certainly flavor this dough, and actually this can be used to make homemade focaccia as well, which is pretty much pizza dough served as a flatbread without sauce. Typically, you'll put it on a big sheet pan, you'll spread it out, dimple it with your fingers to put the little nodules in it, brush it with olive oil, and flavor it at how you like. You can also reinforce those flavors by putting it in the dough, like fresh rosemary, cracked black pepper, parmesan, basil. It's endless. So hey, you learn one great thing and learn to apply it and use it in other ways. So let's get this mixed up and ready to proof. We'll complete this dough, get it on our awesome machine here, add our dough attachment, and let the machine do the work. Start on low. That way you won't be wearing your flour. It's coming together. Now that the flour is moist, I'm going to crank it up to about 2 or 3 and let it knead for about 5 minutes. Then we will take the dough hook out, put a little oil on top of the dough ball, and cover it with plastic to proof. Okay, I totally forgot I have some minced garlic. I'm going to add a little bit of this to my dough. I've already added about a half a teaspoon, and that would just infuse the nice garlicky flavor into the crust. I'm going to reserve the rest of this to make a little garlic butter to brush the edges of the crust with. Now, keep in mind, when you're making things like this at home, it gives you so much control. You can take this same dough and make a multitude of dishes. You can make calzones, you can make pizza, you can make stuffed crust pizza, you can even make pizza pockets. It's endless. So I implore you to try to make things on your own and have fun and more control in your kitchen. All right, I'm gonna mix this up and get it in the oven to proof. Okay, pizza lovers, we're back. Our dough has doubled in size. Once again, I'm working off of a parchment sheet because it's just easier to deal with later. Have like a little flour tile nearby. And I'm going to do these on a sheet pan. I'm going to dust my paper. Now you could definitely use cornmeal or semolina like what's done classically, but I'm not big on that cornmeal at the bottom of my pizza, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to put a little flour on the rolling pin and try to get this guy formed into a rectangle. Ooh, it feels so good. It's very relaxed, soft, tender dough. The thickness is really up to you. If you like thick crust, you can make it more thick and maybe stop at about 1/4 to 1/2 inch in thickness. But I'm going to try to take it out to the size of my sheet pan because it's going to proof again and double in size once more. And this is why I love working with this on the parchment, because it makes transfer very easy. However, if you didn't have the parchment, you could place your rolling pin, flop it over, roll it up, and lift it onto the pan like so. Now we will dimple the dough, which we'll just take a fork and make little prickles, and that will help the bottom not become soggy as well. Stop the dough. I'm going to do a 1/2 jar per sheet pan pizza. Spread that around. Remember, don't sauce too heavily. And for those that want a little bit more sauce, you can serve it with some on the side. An overly sauced pizza will take longer to cook and may possibly have soggy crust. Unless you had like a pizza stone that would cook it from the underside faster. You could certainly do this with different types of cheeses, whatever works for you, whatever you like. In the oven it goes. Yum, yum. Done. Ready for the oven. Just like that, delicious homemade pizza ready to go. Yum. Don't forget to share on your social media platforms and hit the bell. Thank you.